Namaskar. Take feeling no attraction to the sensory world, either subtle or gross. The yogi lives in the ever-new joy of his own being. United to spirit, he attains the perfection of absolute bliss. Many people think that if you're not going to be enjoying or having ups and downs in your feelings, if you eliminate if you become even-minded all times, you have to eliminate feeling. This is not the case. You can't eliminate feeling. Feeling is citta. Citta is the essence of consciousness. The intellect can find out many answers, but only the feeling. There are two things science will never be able to replicate, never be able to produce in their own way: feeling and ego consciousness. And that feeling exists at all levels. There's been some talk in our age of someday needing to offer computer rights. What a ridiculous concept. They figure that a computer will someday be so complex that it will become conscious. Well, think of a worm. It is not complex. It is about as simple a creature as you can find, that you can see with your naked eye. And yet it has feeling. You prick it with a pin and it backs away. It has eye consciousness, consciousness of self, and it has feeling. You can't get rid of feeling. This is the mistake that science does. They think that the more you become unfeeling, the more you will understand everything. Nothing that is true ever can be understood just by reason. You have to understand by feeling. There are many. When I was a child, I used to play games with myself this way because I knew I had a good brain. I could reason things well, but I knew that that was not going to give me the truth. And so I would propose ridiculous but logical possibilities, like saying to my mother, "Oh, mother, don't give me spinach. Spinach is green, and green is the color of envy and jealousy, and you don't want me to become envious and jealous, do you?" Well, I would know that I was playing a game with myself, but I did it for a deliberate reason. I did it to persuade myself that until I can feel that a thing is true, I cannot accept that it is true. People have been very upset with me sometimes because they give me all the logic why this has to be true and that isn't. I have never accepted it because I knew in my heart that if I didn't feel it, then I couldn't know it. I couldn't understand it. They may be right, but I haven't felt it. Feeling is what will guide you to what is right or wrong. So the essence of scientific advancement, the essence of everything depends finally not on reason, but on feeling. And you will find that in science, usually the great discoveries are not made incrementally by reasoning process. Reasoning is so slow. It goes from this step to this step to this step, and finally you are supposed to arrive at something. What really happens, even in that process of reasoning, is that suddenly you click in and you understand. Well, all scientific discoveries have really come in that way. They have suddenly understood. Thomas Edison, when he invented the filament for the electric light bulb, he went through 43,000 experiments before he finally found one that would really work. What on earth led him to make that many? He could not have made that many experiments. Most of his co-workers were ready to stop long before then. But he knew in his heart that it would work. Every great scientific discovery has come that way. Einstein discovered the law of relativity in just a flash. Then he had to spend 10 years explaining it to other people in such a way that others would understand him. But this is the truth always, that intuition is absolutely necessary, and without it, you can't be sure. So anytime people would argue with me, I would want to feel it inside. I know in algebra, they gave us tricks to solve problems. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go through it in such a way that I could understand and feel it. And it took me longer, but I came to understand algebra that way, whereas the others came out of the course and didn't understand it. and math was probably my best subject. But it was always, I was never satisfied if people gave me a good reason for something. I had to feel it in here. In your life also, feel the truth. And don't feel that by eliminating feeling you will attain anything, because you can reason your way to prove any point you want to do. Thieves will sometimes say, they'll justify why they steal from people. For example, well, I am just teaching him a lesson that he should keep his car locked. That's why I took it. People will use reason to justify any crime, any mistake, anything that they do. You have to have that reason there. This is why I propose as the best rule for finding what is morally true is, what does it do for your feeling? To steal from others, you will feel something of their pain, their loss, because you're connected with them. When you hurt another person, you can't say, as everybody tries to do, well, I've hurt him, but I'm fine. You can't hurt another person because you are also in them. You are a part of a great network of consciousness that embraces the entire universe. A.E., the Irish poet, said, I move my hand and it will affect in some way, some slight way, the most distant star. And science today, with quantum theories and so on, says that an electron, if it moves here, there will be a pair electron in some distant place that will somehow also react. Everything that you do in some way affects everything else. So when you feel a truth, then you can know, is it right or is it wrong? But you must always understand that in not having likes and dislikes, you must be that joy at the center of your being. Not having attractions or repulsions doesn't mean not feeling anything. It means living in that joy in yourself. Live in that freedom in yourself. This is really why I have started a new Swami order, a Naya Swami we call it. Because in the old way, well, first of all, Shankaracharya was a great master, and I even questioned quite seriously whether my own guru was not Shankaracharya. So many things he told me, stories of someone that I don't think those stories would have made it into the history books, but he talked of it as if he was there. Anyway, the point is that in his day, science had not brought people, and mankind had not evolved to the point where they can understand that everything is one, that we're all interrelated. I'm apart from you. However, if I eat food and don't give it to you, I get filled. What does it matter what happens to you? This is the thinking of the ego. But as in the Swami order, there was an emphasis on rejection. Not this, not that, neti, neti. I give up attachment to drinking. I give up attachment to this kind of food. I give up attachment to enjoying this place and thinking of it as mine, and so on and so on. This is okay, but it's still, you have to get rid of this thing and then that thing and then the other thing. And the number of ways, as it says in the Bhagavad Gita in the very beginning, our side, the Kauravas, are difficult to count. That's the actual translation. Not are difficult to defeat, but difficult to count. And the reason is that there's so many ways of erring. How do you get rid of them all? Well, in this order we emphasize, it's more, instead of Maya rejecting, it's Samadhi embracing. And so the basis of it is to get rid of this ego, of which everything else is an objectification of. The ego is what wants that job. The ego is what likes this particular place. The ego is what wants that money and so on. But if you can get rid of that central ego, then all these other things vanish. Like Alexander with the Gordian knot, he cut through the knot and there was no problem. But until then, loosening one side, tightened another, loosening this side, tightened this, and there was no way out. These are all symbols of spiritual truths. Actually, the Greek myths are full of deep symbols. So anyway, as you learn to have an even mind at all times, not by killing your feeling, but by internalizing it. You will find that in that inner bliss, suddenly you understand things. When you are calm, you don't judge. When you receive and accept everything, as my guru used to say, what comes of itself, let it come. When you can learn to be that accepting in yourself, so that even if disaster comes, let it be, you will find that then it's amazing how God comes through and helps you. I told you a story some time ago. It's a very interesting story. There was a friend of mine. He was Indian. He came from, I can't think of the name right now, Bhubaneswar. And he was a student at the Davis University, and we were friends there. Well, when I went back to India in 1972, I regretted that I didn't have his address. I wanted to see him just as a friend. And I came from Delhi to Calcutta, and I arrived in Calcutta, and friends who were going to meet me weren't there. What do you usually do under such circumstances? You rush to the nearest phone and find out where are they, what's going. And I just didn't do that. I just accepted, well, Divine Mother, what have you got in mind? And with that calmness, everything worked out beautifully. My friends hadn't come because they'd been delayed in a traffic jam. It wasn't as if they weren't coming. They just hadn't gotten there yet. But I was standing there just saying, well, Divine Mother, what have you got in mind? And suddenly this passenger coming from a plane stopped in front of me, and he said, what is your good name? And I told him, and he said, oh, I thought you must be he. He said, I've seen your picture in a photograph album of a friend of mine. And I said, well, who is this friend? He said, Dr. Mishra. It was the same man I wanted to meet. And I said, well, I've been wanting to meet him. Can you give me his address? He said, you don't have to have his address. I'll take you there. He's saying he's visiting in Calcutta right now. So I went with him. And if I had not gone to him, and if I had not met my friends, that night all hotels were completely taken. So you see how God worked everything out, but she wouldn't have done that if I hadn't just, instead of rushing to the nearest phone and getting all excited, just calmly waited and said, well, Divine Mother, what have you got in mind? Everything worked out. I got to see my friend, and I've seen this sort of thing happen many times in my life. I would urge you to try it. Experiment. See if God won't come through. There is no disaster so great that does not have its positive side. You can't have a wave going down that will not come up. On the other hand, you cannot have a wave going up that will not come down. And life is a constant play of this duality, the ups and downs of life. But remember this, no matter how high the waves, they never change the overall level of the ocean. So the reality we are living in is not the one that it appears to be. We see ourselves surrounded by high waves and so on, all the excitements and depressions of this Maya world around us. But that's not the real world. Everything is really the one consciousness of God, and everything exists in that consciousness. The less you involve yourself in the outward play, the more free you are in yourself. The more excited you become, you will have to experience the opposite of that excitement, the depression. The more you even these things out, the more your feelings become deeper, not eliminated, but deeper. And you will see things. Really, I have, in writing a book of science, I wrote a book called Out of the Labyrinth, which is, I think, a good book. It answers many questions of modern science that they have raised, trying to prove that there is no meaning in life, and no God, and no this, and no that. And I read what they had to say. I didn't reject it. I didn't say that this is absolute bilge, it can't be true. I didn't reject it. I just said, well, let me see if it is true. I let them try to make their case for me. I had no prejudice, I just listened. And then in that listening I could see clearly, here's the fallacy. You will find in your life, if instead of trying to kill your feelings, so many people when they get older, and people who go more by reasoning, they have lines all over their faces. Well, I'm 84, and I don't have those lines because I've been even-minded. When you can learn to keep your mind calm and centered in itself, then you discover that you understand things quickly. And many times, and another thing is that when I myself have tried to find answers to questions, sometimes I put a little more effort into it and it may become ego. I'm trying to find this. But when somebody else asks me that question, suddenly I know the answer. If you want to know what to do in your life, what direction to take in your life, how you should improve your lot, all these things are there to be seen and understood and embraced. But first you have to calm your feelings. And when those calm feelings are there, then suddenly you do understand. And this has shown itself even in the lives of scientists. But if you don't get excited by anything, a businessman who fails in some deal will get all angry and shout at his office workers and so on. If he could remain calm, he would find that quickly the answers are there. If there is a problem, there will always be an answer. If there's a question, there will always be an answer. There will always be a solution. In the American Indians used to say that if there is a poisonous plant, there will be the antidote right near it. If you can find it, take that and you won't be bothered by it. Somebody from India told me, and I would not dare to try this experiment, but he said that in the tail of a cobra there is a certain serum which if you bite that tail, you won't be hurt by the cobra. Well, I don't know if it's true in fact, but in principle it is true, that every difficulty has embedded within it the solution. So if you're calm, then you'll always find that solution. Joy to you.